Bwana Yesu asifiwe. Praise be to God. Well, what a joy to return to the Gospel Tabernacle Church, and thank you. You know, I will not speak if she's standing. Because we have to respect her. We have come, quite a team. Those of you who are here because they heard I was coming, please stand up. Wow. So, thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. It must be, the culprit must be that gentleman who is walking in. His name is Muriuki Ntwiga. Oh, no, either him or Mariam, who is sitting right there behind you. He's in charge of our protocol. And thank you so much for coming, so that you can hear what I'm going to say. To return to the Gospel Tabernacle on a day like this is a tremendous measure of honor. I came with a family member, our son Klein Mairu Kalonzo. Just stand, Klein. I gather you were the one who was supposed to speak. So I will hand over the microphone, maybe between you and the bishops. You know when, perhaps during the Thanksgiving bit, because we have every reason to thank God as a family. As a bishop said, and very quietly, exactly 40 years ago today, I got married to Klein's mother. He's not the first one. Ken is, and then Kevin, and their spouses, and then Klein, and then their last born sibling is Damari, who must have flown in yesterday. Please, Klein, you can sit. I think an opportunity to be given to you to thank God on behalf of your siblings. Bishop Mama Kiki, thank you so much, because I said I just wanted to come here. In many ways, you are family. The late Bishop Muyu one time traveled across the United States before 2007 with me, because he was following what the Lord has put in their heart. It's true, in 1988, I didn't know them, they came. 1988, what was I? I had not even become the deputy speaker. I think about that time I was assistant minister in the Ministry of Works, Housing and Fiscal Planning, either serving under late ministers Justice Oletipis or Ken Matiba, I can't remember. What I remember though is when our firstborn son arrived, Ken, that was in 1986. Kenneth Matiba flew all the way to London, because he was my minister, and went to what I think it still is called Mother Care, and bought a baby, what is it, tumeweka watoto hapo? Akaibeba yote mpaka hiyo. So that's how Kennedy was put in that one, and he became a big man. We thank God for life, but then God also has put in our hearts the need to do something during our generation to save this land. We used to think it was a normal thing, service, because it is very clear in my mind, and this is my advice to political leaders: unless the Lord has called you to it, you find it very difficult. Therefore, for me, it's a calling, and that's why we keep at it, even though sometimes the going becomes extremely difficult, very, very difficult. And you want to say, hey, is it really God's calling? When I first ran in 1983, I was not even married to my wife, Pauline, but she had faith and she went and registered as a voter in Kitui North, while she was from Kitui Central. She had that faith because I had communicated. By the way, before we got married 40 years ago, we had a courtship of 13 years. So that's why I tell young people, you can wait. You can wait. You don't have to be in a hurry until the Lord tells you this is what He wants you to do. So as I share that story with you, I also realize we are not operating in a vacuum. We as a nation are at a crossroads. And if you look at it, it's not just Kenya. I know that Mama Kiki is from royalty in Uganda. Those signs of Tororo in Uganda. Is it Toro? Not Tororo, which is it? The other side, near the Ruwenzori, Suku. As I speak to you, about 3-4 days ago, the town of Uvira, which is a border town between Burundi and Rwanda, fell to what is now called M23. It's a militia group that is operating within the DRC and has brought a lot of tension between two countries, the Republic of Congo and Rwanda. And now the headline is, this is in the East African, one of the publications called the East African, that a conflict with all the trappings of a regional conflict. And so, because it has already brought in DRC and Rwanda, but very easy for Uganda to be enjoined. Burundi is already enjoined. Tanzania by extension. Kenya, of course, by extension, because President William Ruto allowed the M23 group to come and get established here in Nairobi when they formed the River Congo Initiative. The River Congo, they call it initiative, but it is really an attempt to topple President Felix Tshisekedi of the DRC. So we are already engulfed. To our eastern gate, we have Somalia, always in difficulty for a long time, since 1991, when I was foreign minister then. About that time, I hadn't become, yes, I was foreign minister, I think. I hadn't become foreign minister, became foreign minister in 1993. And I remember sitting with the late General Aidid, who fled. He didn't flee. The one who fled was the person who was overthrown and flew across the border in Mandera, came all the way, Siad Barre, and was held in the hotel we call Safari Park Hotel. And the conflict in in Somalia took root. Since that time, a lot of young Somalis who have been born have never gone to school. All they know is a weapon called AK-47. The Russians invented a very dangerous weapon. I think it's named after the inventor Khrushchev, somebody, AK-47. That is one mid-level weapon that has caused havoc in our region. Of course, we had the G3s. Some of them at some stage went across to Somalia and they were used against Kenyans because we were supporting that time General Morgan, thinking General Morgan will bring peace in Somalia. It did not happen. Of course, we have Ethiopia. A lot of Ethiopians too try to come in through. You may have heard of the Oromo Liberation Front. A lot of trouble in Ethiopia. Eritrea has been seen like a very difficult neighbor. I see they have even withdrawn from the regional organization called IGAD, for which I personally worked very hard in Djibouti when we wanted to bring development in our region. So this country called Kenya, is it described, Madam Bishop, in the book of Isaiah, the rivers, the land beyond, the land beyond the rivers of Abyssinia. Kenya in the Bible is not specifically mentioned, like countries like Libya, or a little island country called Cyprus, where in the little town of Paphos, because I know about Cyprus, I spent a year there for postgraduate work, and that is where Apostle Paul met with the witch, Jesus. What was the name? You know that story, and was blinded. You see specific mention of Cyprus. Tunisia, where the Arab Spring began several years ago. And of course Ethiopia, a country that was never colonized, and the home of who went to visit King Solomon? Do we know? Do you remember? Who was it? Queen of Sheba. Queen of Sheba. That country is so biblical. Ethiopia. So we are in the neighborhood of Ethiopia. But we became independent in 1963. 2 days ago, we were 62 years into our independence. Political independence. What did we do with our political independence? We all know, over the years, political assassinations, intolerance, tribalism, and the culmination of the whole thing is massive youth unemployment. And then, lo and behold, some sections of the church took it upon themselves to pray in, and I'm so happy about what Bishop has pointed to us about Hosea. Kumbe, we can choose our own leaders, not God. Hey, that's exactly what seems to have happened in Kenya. And then the wording there is ruin, ruin, ruin until the rightful leadership comes into place. I feel very encouraged. But as we speak, the church that prayed the present administration to office is now crying. It's now crying. I used to think of the remnant of the church, Bishop, and remember the long-time prophecy that Kenya will be the springboard for the outreach of gospel to the African continent. And we have delayed so much that I think our brothers in Nigeria took over. There's so much revival in Nigeria that what should have been happening in this country is happening elsewhere. But God's timing is always the best. But now, those who say, sio kwa uchawi, that was the saying, sio kwa uchawi ni kwa maombi. Kumbukeni, we buried Raila Odinga the other day. And they always used to say, ni mganga, ni mchawi. That's why some of us went and gave our testimony. So this man's only commitment and sin was he's committed to liberating this country truly. But he ended up being called a mganga, a mchawi. And the people who did so actually went out to bury him. And you can see a lot of drama going on around who is inheriting the spirit of Raila. Raila will sleep in peace or whatever. He faces God the best way he can, because we all are subject to God's judgment after we exit the stage. But the church that prayed, because I remember both the president and deputy that time say they were prayed into office. So the church that prayed them into office is today subject to state regulation. Church, are you there? Hello? Am I speaking to you? The office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary issued a notice to say from the 15th, I think 15, 16, 3 days, and they gave a tabulation of which counties to visit so that they can look at and do public participation. Thank God for President Kibaki who slept, and some of us who were able, along with Raila Odinga, who gave the country Constitution 2010. Because under its terms, the principle of public participation is a constitutional principle. So if they want to mess up with the church, they must first of all pretend they are doing public participation. And they are using the excuse of Shakahola. Remember Shakahola? The people who are praying for the same people, praying them in, ended up doing Shakahola. Church, are we together? Now they are using the Shakahola excuse to regulate the entire church. I looked at the draft bill. They are a little shy about taxing, tithing. Yeah, but anything the church tries to do will be subject to taxation. The church that prayed this administration into office is now shaking under the weight of the administration's misrule. Well, I want to announce here that because I here members of Wiper Patriotic Front, and allow me to say this in church, we will and we object to regulation of the church. The freedom of worship, Remember, some of these friends were opposed to this constitution, but we went ahead and got Constitution 2010, which now guarantees the freedom of worship. So you cannot attempt to limit that freedom. And you know, there are all kinds of denominations in this country. There's one group where I used to be a member of parliament for Mwingi North, Kitui North, called the Kabonokia group. They never would take out their voter's card, and they will never therefore go to vote, but they will come and pray for us. God speaks to his people differently. Now you cannot force them to do that which in their conscience is not right, provided they are not a cult. This is not, I remember one time in the country of this Caribbean country, where there's somebody called Johnson, who got people to take, I think it's Guyana, wakagri wote, wakule sumu, wakufe, wakakufa. That was a cult. So anything, and I can tell you from my law office at Church House, a few of you may know, I actually registered Crisco, and I remember I had to ask the late Apostle Das and the people who came with him, because they were originally from Guyana. I said, could it be that you want to come start work here in Kenya and get Kenyans to commit suicide massives? Of course not. And the Crisco ministry has grown in leaps and bounds. Ni kweli ama si kweli? Archbishop Arthur Kitonga could not be allowed to register that time. And I'm sure all of you here will know Archbishop Arthur Kitonga. Redeemed Gospel Church. It was I registered it as Redeemed Gospel Inc. Not a church, but a company limited by guarantee. It has grown in leaps and bounds. Because you see, all we needed to do is get those documents from the US, wherever, and put them through the registrar of companies. That ministry has grown. I remember those two because I was involved in their registration. They did not commit Shakahola. So the Shakahola story is a failure of the internal security system of this country. It is not the church. Before people got to the stage where they are dying, starving to death and whatever, they are chiefs, they are DOs, they are DCIs, Department of Criminal Investigation. You cannot therefore bring the whole church and subject it to the misrule that is Shakahola. Church, am I talking to you? So how many of you would agree with us that to object, sisi tuendelee na kupinga hii maneno ya regulation of the church? Because the freedom of worship is absolute. So allow the churches themselves to self-regulate. That they can do. They're actually able to do that. There are men and women who are senior, and they can get together, the bishops, the bishops. And so that was my message. So the evangelical church in Kenya prayed into office men and women who are now acting against the very mission and vision. Because the mission and vision is to save souls for Christ. While it tarries, our business is to spread the gospel. So how do you now hinder the spread of that gospel? So I therefore think, I see they have now withdrawn that notice. They have withdrawn it. Ati wanasema watakubali, watarudia hiyo maneno next year. Watarudia maneno ndio wafanye. By the way, even the Muslims are against this regulation. Everybody, because they can see this is not the way to run the country. So back to the story of the young people who are unemployed. First of all, I wanted to take this opportunity to register our strong objection to any attempt to regulate the church in this country. And for it to be very, very clear. And I said, if there are things that get overdone, it is a matter of security. The United States of America has blossomed over the years. I never heard of regulation of the church or anywhere else. So I think the attempt in kutafuta vile, they also tax. If they see a young bishop looking smart, they say he has to pay taxes. So then we should not give up. This season is pregnant with a lot of hope, and I like that heading there. Christ in you, the hope of glory. So we must keep hope. We must keep faith as well. And what does the Bible tell us about faith? It is the substance of things hoped for and evidence of things not seen. We must keep faith as Kenyans. Keep faith that tomorrow, all those pretenders whose business was to come and sell even our inheritance ya watoto. The story about East African Portland cement is particularly depressing, because this is over 13,000 acres of land between the Maasais and the Kambas. They are privatizing. They've already actually sold off. Forget about Safaricom. East African Portland is already been sold to a company called Kalahari. Kalahari is supposed to be a subsidiary of another company called Amsons, which is supposed to be a Tanzanian company that bought Bamburi Cement, which used to be owned by a huge cement conglomerate, French, called Lavage. Lavage decided to sell off all its interests in Africa, including in Uganda. And when a young, able Kenyan who was running Savannah Cement, about the same way, called Ndeta, a gentleman from Western Kenya. He ran Savannah Company. And then he placed a bid, and he was the winner for the purchase of Bamburi Cement. I went and removed him from jail. They arrested him, put him in Muthaiga police station. This is opening this year, Madam Bishop. That's why we have reason to give thanks today. Because Benson Detta was put in Muthaiga police station. He was told, you have to give up that bid. Although you won the bid to buy Bamburi, you must give it up. He gave it up. They did not charge him. Now, in the meantime, East African Portland, because there's something called the Kenya Competitive Authority, the Amson group had to look for another Kalahari. So Kalahari, and we are going to come up with a comprehensive statement to say, you cannot go and take up this land between the Maasais and people of Machakos, 13,000 acres, so that you then can put there any kind of thing. All these things you're hearing about affordable housing, is really a big scam. And we'll be actually continuing to do so. So the country is at great risk. Safaricom, which is like the goose that lays a golden egg, paying so much to Treasury by way of dividends, is already getting sold. So what are we bequeathing these young people who are unemployed? What we are bequeathing them is, I'm sorry to tell you, empty hope that from January, this administration is going to start an expressway to Thika. Expressway to Thika. 5 trillion shillings budget. And the worst crime, I'm sorry to say, which is contrary to the Constitution itself, is to say that you're going to now look for money which are not accounted for under the budget. The budgetary process is a constitutional process. I heard this president saying you cannot operate within the budget. Therefore, you get friends from wherever, invest, buy out, like is happening with East African Portland Cement. So we will do the best. I ask for your prayers as we move into next year, so that we can, in a democratic way, remove an administration that is bringing nothing but suffering to our people. I know that's a strong statement. And so, but we have to do it by asking young people to take out their votes. They are voting, they take out voters' cards, and make sure that at the right time we'll be able to give direction on how not to have another stolen election. Because that is the only thing they're hoping to do, is to steal the election. But I think we're able to stop them from stealing. But it's not us. The good Lord in heaven will. So that you don't subvert the wishes of the Kenyan people. Sorry I've spoken, but then you see, I asked Bishop to write a note to Bishop Akiki to tell her I don't want to speak. I think she overruled all of us, but I thank God that I've spoken. Nimeongea initoke, sio? So that you know what kind of a human being came here today. Huyu mtu ako na mashida yake, aombewe. But he has also reason to thank God for amazing grace. Amazing grace. So thank you so much, and may God bless you. Remember, we gave a pledge that the vision of the late Bishop Moyo was clearly not to have this thing remain Mabati forever. We have to commit, because this is a semi-permanent structure. With God's help, we should come here with a proper tabernacle. God bless you.
Sir, can you see over there, behind that vision?
Yeah, that one there.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Good.
We have not told you, but
Thank you. I've seen
it is your personal commitment.